We are now in lesson 11-2. We're going to be looking at unit prices. Here's the launch problem again. Try your hardest, come up with an answer. Don't spend more than 5 minutes working on it. This is really just to get your brains thinking before we move on into the new concepts that we're about to learn.
Your cousin shops for movies online. He sees 3 different offers. Which offer should your cousin choose? Explain your reasoning.
Here's the answer. If you take what we learned in our last lesson, we can find the unit rate. And because we're dealing with money, that's actually going to be what we're learning about today. We're just going to change the name and say we're dealing with unit prices. You can read through each of these by pausing the video if you would like to figure out how they got the answer that their cousin should choose offer number 2. Here we're moving to the key concept.
A unit price is a unit rate that gives the price of one item.
So here the rate is 3 shirts for $18. The unit price is going to be how much does it cost for 1 shirt. So if we look at this fraction right here, $18 for 3 shirts, it's also set up like a ratio. All that we have to do is simplify it so it's per shirt. So when we were dealing with unit rates, remember, per means 1. So how much money are you going to spend for 1 shirt? In this case, it's going to be $6 for each shirt. We are now in part 1.
To find a unit price, write the ratio with the total price in the numerator and the total number of items in the denominator. Then, find an equivalent ratio with the denominator of 1 item by dividing. Notice that you divide the total price by the total number of items to find the unit price. Since the denominator of the equivalent fraction is 1 item, you can write the unit price as a price per item.
So what you need to take out of this intro is that your price is always going to be the top part of your fraction or the numerator, and the number of items that you're buying or the number of items that you have is going to be on the bottom, so it's going to be your denominator. We'll look at some example problems together.
What is the unit price of each item?
So for a movie ticket, we want to make sure our price goes on top, so it's our numerator, and our quantity, so the total number that we have, goes on bottom. We want to make this so that it is equivalent to another fraction that has 1 for a denominator. So I then have to determine, how do I get from 5 to 1? Well, I divide by 5. And if you divide the bottom by 5, you also have to divide the top by 5. And 30 divided by 5 is going to give me 6. Some of you might also be realizing that if we did top number divided by bottom number, we would get the same answer, and you would be correct in thinking that. If we move on to B, how much is it going to be for 1 pair of jeans? Our price goes on top. The number that we have goes on bottom. So we have 3 pairs of jeans, and we want to make it equivalent to the price per 1 pair of jeans. I take 3 divided by 3, which would give me 1, and then I have to take 75 divided by 3 to get that unit price. When I get 75 divided by 3, 25 is my answer. So 75 divided by 3, 25, that is my unit price. So again, I made an equivalent fraction or equivalent ratio, and I divided 3 divided by 3 to get 1, 75 divided by 3 to get 25. But if you also just looked at this fraction, or 75 over 3, essentially what we just did is numerator divided by denominator. You would have gotten the same answer. Last but not least, we're trying to find the unit price of the birthday cards. 10 goes on top, 4 goes on bottom, what do you think the unit price is going to be? So again, we want to take our top number divided by bottom number, or make it equivalent to 1. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so we get 10 divided by 4 will give us our unit price. If you're not sure what 10 divided by 4 is, it's okay to do work off to the side, and I'll even show that over here. 10 divided by 4. How many times does 4 go into 10? It goes in 2 times. That's 8. I subtract. 10 minus 2 is 20. I'm going to add a decimal point and a 0. And I'm going to drop that 0 down. How many times does 4 go into 20? It goes in 5 times, which is 20 exactly. And my final answer, I need to bring my decimal point straight up, is 2.5. So in this case, 2.5 actually means $2.50. This one was $25, and this one is $6. Hopefully when you did it on your own, you were able to get this final answer. Here's our first got it problem.
A sports store sells 5 baseballs for $12.50. What is the price per baseball?
The correct answer is $2.50. And here's the work provided to show you how we got the answer. $12.50 over 5, we make it so it's equivalent to per baseball. So 1 is on our denominator. We're now in part 2, and it's a very similar problem as we did in part 1. The only difference is our prices are now prices that have cents involved with them, whereas last time they did not. So we still want to do the same concepts. Our price goes on the top, so I spend $4.50 on pencils, and I get 5 of them. I want to make this ratio equivalent to something over 1, because I want to know the unit price, so I want to know how much did I spend for 1 pen. I take my 5 divided by 5 to get 1, and I'm going to do 4.5 or $4.50 divided by 5 to get my unit price. When I do $4.50 divided by 5, I write it out like this. 5 cannot go into 4. My decimal point will go straight up. How many times does 5 go into 45? That's 9 times. So I subtract my 45 because 5 times 9 is 45. I drop my 0. 5 goes into 0. 0 times. My final answer is 90 cents. I apologize for Luna's barking. Alright, so to move on to B, we're going to figure out what the unit price is for pencils. I'm going to clear my work so I have more space. My price is going to go on top. It's always going to go on top. The quantity that I have, or the total number that I have, is going to go on bottom. And I want to again make it equivalent to how many per pencil. So per means 1. I'm going to divide each top and bottom number by 6, because what you do to one number you have to do to the other. 6 divided by 6 is going to give me 1. That's how I know I'm dividing by 6. And now we're going to solve what $1.14 divided by 6 is. 6 cannot go into 1. My decimal point goes straight up. I want to figure out how many times does 6 go into 11. It can go in 1 time, and that's 6. So I need to do 6 minus 11. That's 5. And I want to bring down my 4. 6 can go into 4 9 times, and 9 times 6 is 54. When I subtract, I have nothing left over, which means my final answer is 19 cents. I have 19 cents for pencils. I apologize, my work went away. I had 90 cents for the other one, so I'll write that in. And this time I will just erase my work so it doesn't fully go away. Last but not least, we have paper clips. 40 cents. When I write 40 cents, I write it as a decimal point. Just like if you had $4.50, the cents are in the decimal points, and so even though I don't have dollars here, I have to write it as a decimal, and it's going to be over 50. And I want to make that equivalent to something over 1. You could do top number divided by bottom number, which is essentially what I'm doing when I say 50 divided by 50 is 1. And so I'm going to do 4 tenths or 40 hundredths divided by 50 to get my final answer. Here I'm just writing out the problem. We're dividing by 50. 50 cannot go into 0. 50 cannot go into 4. 50 can't even go into 40. So far I have all zeros. I'll bring my decimal point straight up. And still no answer. But remember, I can add zeros to the end after a decimal point and it does not change my value. So I can figure out how many times 50 goes into 400. 50 can go into 100 twice. So it can go into 200 4 times. 300 6 times. 400 8 times. So 50 times 8 is 400. When I subtract, I have nothing left over, which means that my paper clips aren't even going to be a cent. That's what this means, because cents only go to 2 numbers after the decimal point, and this has 3 numbers after the decimal point. If I rounded, it would be about 1 cent for a paper clip. So paper clips are not very expensive. Here's our second got it problem.
A pack of 6 bottles of a sports drink sells for $4.50. What is the unit price of 1 bottle of the sports drink?
Our answer is 75 cents per bottle. You can pause the video to see how you got that answer if that was not what you had wrote in the Edpuzzle question. Here's part 3 example problem, and what it wants us to do is order the containers from the best buy to the worst buy. So your best deal that you get to what one would have you spending the most money. So essentially, it's going to be least to greatest. I'm going to have you try and solve this, and then I will have the correct answer up after you write in your answer. So you're finding the unit prices for all 3 deals, and you're going to order them from least to greatest so that it's your best buy to worst buy. Here's the work that you needed to do in order to find the unit prices. You can pause the video at any point so that you can look it over. So your final answer should have been this right here. Here's the last got it problem. We're running out of time with our video, so please read it and tell me which one your correct answer would be. Your correct answer is going to be B, Kyle, and you can stop the video in order to read how we got that. That's all for this lesson.